Hi, everybody. Tina Brock, Producing Artistic Director here at the Idiopathic Ridiculopathy Consortium in Philadelphia. I'm your host for Into the Absurd, a virtually existential dinner conversation. I do hope you'll join us the next 50 minutes. Sit back and relax as we explore the lives, the hearts, the minds, and the spirits of creators in Philadelphia region and around the world. Good afternoon, everyone. Hello and happy end of July to you. Tina Brock here, your host for Into the Absurd, a virtually existential dinner conversation, coming to you today from the set of Christopher Durang's Betty's Summer Vacation, which you may remember from 2019. And Dirk Durossette designed this set for us, and he's here today to talk to us not only about that, but his entire a career and many, many, many years of designing for all of the companies that you know and love here in Philadelphia and off-Broadway. So thanks for joining us, and you can put your questions in the chat box and we'll get to them this afternoon. If you're joining us on Facebook Live, hello. It's been just a little bit of a respite over the last couple of weeks, but we'll be here back for the next couple of weeks and during the Fringe Festival, and excited to bring to you the voices and the creative minds of people in Philadelphia and around the country. If you're not on the IRC's mailing list, we hope you'll head over to the IRC's website and join up. We send out, you don't want to miss any of our emails about who's coming up on the show. And you can also find us over on our YouTube channel at Idiopathic Ridiculopathy Consortium and also on podcast. So on today's show, we're going to talk about just a subject that is so intricate and necessary, important, just detailed for actor, for director, for everybody involved in a production. And I think that we don't often get the opportunity to go inside the minds of the folks who make these magical, wonderful worlds for us. So Dirk Durossette has been designing scenery, teaching design, drawing, and rendering for the last 20 years in and around the Philadelphia region and off-Broadway. And he's taught theatrical design at the University of the Arts, at Temple University, at Villanova University, and at Ocean County College. He's currently a professor, full-time faculty member in the Design Tech Department at Rowan University, and he has his MFA in scenic design from Temple University. So Dirk Durossette, welcome to the land that we all know and love, Betty's Summer Vacation House.
Hello, thanks for having
me. Thanks so much for being here, Dirk. It gives me so many wonderful memories to be able to sit in front of this photo, because what you accomplished in this scenic design on a very little budget in a very small space over at the Walnut Street Theater, and the issues that had to happen with things coming through ceilings and doors slamming and all kinds of things. And we'll get to that just a little bit later, but it's fond memories. And I look forward to the day when we can be back on that stage and get that scenic design for two character play up on the stage.
Absolutely.
The goalposts keep moving for us. So.
Yes.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I wanted to start, I'm so intrigued with much of what I love. I see on Facebook a lot, you'll be doodling and posting your designs up on Facebook. And it made me wonder if cartooning or comic book design wasn't in your childhood aspirations. And I wonder if you could speak to that.
Yeah, it's fascinating that you said that and you recognize that. I definitely wanted to be a cartoonist. It was a dream of mine. I was a big fan of Mad Magazine. I used to collect them. I was probably a little young, maybe, for some of the subject matter in it, but my mom would always, and you could get them at the supermarket at the time. And if I'd go to the supermarket with my mom, I'd run over and grab the latest Mad Magazine. And I guess it wasn't really the subject matter as much. I just loved looking at the drawings. I just loved the exaggeration. I loved the line work. The images themselves just made me laugh, not really what was being said or what the text was. And I would immediately go home and try to draw them and copy them. And, for years, as a kid, I spent a lot of time thinking about Jack Davis and Mark Drucker and Don Martin. I mean, those were my childhood heroes. Wasn't into sports so much, but I wanted to see their work. I wanted to be like that. I'd copy comic strips, lay out the Sunday papers, and just try to draw it. And It really was. And I did. And there was a time I was actually like trying to draw some as a teenager and thinking, maybe I should send these somewhere and see. The images were funnier than what I was trying to say with the text or trying to make it.
Mm-hmm.
I just love the idea of the image, the funny image. And I didn't pursue it, obviously, as I got older and got into high school, and I just stopped buying Mad magazines. But it was always there in the back of my mind. And it wasn't until, I became an adult and I started looking at some of the ways that I designed and some of the ways that I draw. It's like something got into my DNA at that young age with those drawings and with that drawing style. I think it's fun too, because I think the idea of cartooning is exaggeration. And in a sense, I feel that way about scenery, and I feel that it's an exaggeration of some sort. It's another level. It's a heightened reality. It's better than real. And maybe I consciously think when I'm designing, think like a cartoonist. But I think that idea of taking something that's real and elevating it came from that. I think.
Mm-hmm. And then do you think, like, say, for instance, this set that I'm sitting in front of today, the set for Betty's Summer Vacation, in the design of that, given that play just pushes the boundaries of everything all of the way out, was there anything specific? How were you thinking about exaggeration in that design? If you can remember, that was a couple of years ago, and I
sure. And I'm looking at the picture, and you try to do something that, in all design, you're trying to do something that's appropriate, the psychology that's appropriate to the play that you're doing. Like, what is it about the world that these characters are in that what would support what we're watching? And so the first thing that came to mind in that particular design was color, and high value, high saturated colors, which might seem like a formula for doing comedy. Yeah, it should be colorful and all of that, but there was no color scheme. I just randomly said, I need the color here, I need a contrasting color here, and I really thought about it in chunks of colors. And of course, the motif of this kind of seaside color of the walls was kind of an abstraction of playing around with the ocean and the sea. But then these really bright colors kind of just jutting out of the walls and coming right at you was the starting point for that. So yeah, the exaggeration of color was a big part of that.
And what's so striking about it is the juxtaposition of the brightness against the darkness that then played itself out,
Exactly.
on the stage. So you ended up going to Temple, and we were talking before the show. I didn't realize you were in the acting program.
As an undergrad in California, I was.
Oh, okay. So as an undergrad in California, where did you go to school in California?
I went to California State University, Stanislaus. It's a small town in Central Valley, California. Not small anymore. But I went to school there and went in as an actor. I actually was a music major before I did that. I played the piano and I was studying music. There was no way that I was going to be a concert pianist. There's just no way.
And why do you say that?
It just wasn't.
Was it just the, yeah. Right.
But, and so, all of the arts flow together, and I actually took an introduction to theater course as a general ed requirement when I was a music major. And we had to go on a field trip to San Francisco and see a play. And that was our big city. And we went and we saw the show, and I'd seen, a few plays at school, and seen some opera. And it was the first professional production that I had seen. And it was George Bernard Shaw's You Never Can Tell. And, got good seats. There was, a group of students was sitting really close to the stage. So there was a certain intimacy and a certain immediacy, and breathing the same air with those actors. It was a transformative experience for me. And I thought, I want to do that. I want to get up on stage and do that. And I did it. I don't know how I did it, but I started taking acting classes and auditioning for plays. So I graduated with a degree in theater. It wasn't like a concentration in acting, but it was a BA in theater, and I had been an actor. I directed a show for my senior project. And it was, and it wasn't like I thought I was going to be an actor or wanted to be an actor. But I started working, after that, I started working for an opera company in Modesto, California, where I started stage managing, and I got to stay involved in the theater. And I still thought I would, work and do plays around in that area too. And then I just slowly worked my way into helping with the scenery, and kind of just fell into being the stage manager / scene designer, set builder, scene painter. And ended up doing that for quite a few years, and ended up having a couple shows and a little mini portfolio, and thought, well, what do I got going on here? What could I, what's the next step in this? What's my next step in theater, in the arts, in creating? At the time, I didn't know that's what was, burning inside of me, was wanting to keep creating. But I applied for Temple University. Well, I went to auditions for several universities, got accepted to several universities, and decided to go to Temple. And I made the big move from California to Philadelphia back in 1997, and I've been here ever since.
Wow, that seems like it's a night and day, right? Yeah. In terms of location or part of the country.
Just a few years, I kind of found what felt right for me. And things had, and from that point on, things have happened and gone pretty well. And I'm glad I made all the choices that I made. At the time they didn't feel, maybe it wasn't right. What am I doing? Where am I going to be? But I look back on it all now, and it was a good choice.
It sounds like you were really listening to to just where the river was taking you, as opposed to having a plan, ahead of time. And
that's true. I didn't have real big plans. I had maybe a 2-year plan each year. What's the next year going to? Well, the next 2 years is going to be like. Well, the next 2 years after that going to be.
Yeah. But isn't that so great? Because it just leaves you so open to your growth along the way, and just something unexpected that might be there that you just never even considered before. I think
absolutely. I mean, I would have never, ever thought when I was acting that I would be doing this. But it was a natural extension of it. It just feels the same. The process, that sensation you get when you're starting a new project, a lot of the sensations were the same, and it felt, at first it felt foreign. Now it feels pretty good. Pretty right. Yeah. Well, the seeds of all of that are found in each part of the discipline, right? It's just a question of, you were speaking before the show about, the introversion, extroversion aspect of acting, and how that comes together. And I think you take the things that you learn in one piece, it would seem to me, and you apply them in so many different ways. Do you miss it all?
I guess a better question is, what from your acting that you learned when you were an undergrad do you feel is useful for you when you are designing or when you are working with a director?
Yeah, I think the conversations are close to the same still. I think the conversation an actor has with the director are not far off from what a designer has with a director. You're still talking about those essential things. And then there's they have different tools to do those essential things. And the essential things, I mean, the story that we're trying to tell. And we're all part of that storytelling process. And I think my discussions with directors when I was acting are a lot the same that I have with directors today as a designer. I think a lot of the words we use are the same. I think the process of thinking through a script is the same. I do think I do think about acting when I'm reading. I do think about the space. I do understand what it feels like to be on stage. Sight lines and getting through doors and knowing how the space feels. I think I can still pull from when I was acting, maybe, I don't know. But I don't miss acting. I don't think I'll, there were times I thought people were trying to talk me into auditioning here in Philadelphia for things, and it's just nothing I really want to do. I've thought about it, but I'm.
What kinds of shows? Give me some of the authors that you performed in when you were doing.
I played Demetrius in Midsummer Night's Dream. Did a Václav Havel piece.
Yeah.
Largo Desolado.
And Chekhov, was he in the mix?
Chekhov.
Yeah.
My God.
Could see that. Shepard. Could see that.
I didn't.
No Shepard?
Oh, I did. I did Cowboy Mouth.
I was going to say, you did that. The Shepard.
I played Cowboy.
Mammoth?
I don't think I did a Mammoth.
Yeah. I like a very broad range of possibilities, both classically and American West.
Yes, Shepard.
Yeah, definitely.
Shepard he was that little poet for all of us out in the Central Valley, California. He was our guy.
Yeah, there's nobody writes quite like he does about that space, place, people, you name it. I'm thinking when you were talking about how as an actor, the conversations that you have as an actor versus the conversations that you have with a director. But I remember when we were trying to solve the problem in Betty's Summer Vacation of the entire ceiling collapsing and, what ensued after that and working through that with the idea that you came up with. And I remember really understanding, even though I didn't know you were an actor at the time, thinking he really understands how this has got to work for the actor, because you have however many people jammed back there in a very small space and somebody's trying not to be seen and pulling on a rig and doing all these things. And I remember thinking, gosh, Dirk's either designed a lot of these, low budget shows in small spaces, or else he's quite an engineer, which we knew, but it now makes sense to me that and that's super helpful to understand what it's like to be out there, to have to make a change, to walk underneath a space, to be 7 people in a foot, and also have to create a space where there were just so many slamming doors all the time.
Yes.
To be able to.
It was quite cramped, I remember.
Well, and that little window, the seat, which I love, the wheel, the ship wheel window that the blue's coming through right now. I think it's that window that we just had to crawl underneath to make sure that, which is just all part of the fun. It's just all part of the fun.
Right.
Yeah.
And, sometimes those confines help a design, if you, I think, well, for myself, I like to have confines. and I don't mean like solving a problem or like I like a problem space. I just like to know that I can't do a certain thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and I mean, some people may say, well, no, you have to solve the problem. You can figure things out. Well, I like limits. I like limits in space. I like limits of height. I like limits of width. Because then you can really mold how the design is supposed to fit within a certain space. And, and a lot of theater work, I've done a lot of theater work, we all do, sometimes they're in buildings that weren't theaters to begin with. Mm-hmm. So those kind of confines are very interesting challenges in that, it's not a proscenium theater built for plays and built for a performance. We're in converted buildings of some sort a lot of the time. And I really feel like, that's a good thing. like being told, this is what the amount of space you have, you can't do this. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds weird, but
it reminds me of what the filmmaker Wes Anderson talking about. He worked for so many years with just these very limited budgets and how he's working, and then all of a sudden he got, a huge amount of money, of studio money, to make another film, and it was almost like it went haywire. It just he's like, we don't work in this kind of this kind of world. I mean, are there? Do you work differently with a large budget than you do a small budget, just in terms of
no?
Is it pretty much the same process? It's just you have X amount of dollars here in this space versus
large budget scares me, and I'm not a minimalist at heart. I may seem like one to some people. It's just more money, more problems, I guess, sometimes. Sure, I love to have a big budget show. I love being able to have a show where you can design, but not for the sake of designing. I think you can over design. I think there's something called designer greed. I think you can get away from the story just because you can. You can design big, so go ahead and design big. I kind of feel like my job as a designer is to disappear. Like Dirk disappears. I'm gone. It's the work that's up there. And I think the best compliment I ever got, someone at the end of the show said, "Oh, did you do this set?" And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Well, I have to tell you, after about 10 minutes, I forgot it was there." And
you're like, hooray.
Yeah.
We did it.
I did my job.
What do you remember the show?
Yeah, I think it was Chicago. I think I did a production of Chicago at Villanova almost 20 years ago, I'm sure.
So do you feel like that comment was that it's so well integrated in the storytelling and the actors were so comfortable on it, and it just became one with the story and the set?
The context of the compliment was that. I hope.
Yeah.
No, it was that. It was like, you know what? It just, hopefully it fits so well that you forget it's there. And I know, some people like big Broadway spectacle. Some people want the scenery to interact with them maybe on a different level than some scenic designs do. But if it's psychologically fitting with the story that you're watching, then it should disappear. I think I think that's how it works.
It integrates, right? If there's no trouble, like for the actors, if there isn't any difficulty getting through, getting over, getting under, beside it, if they look comfortable in it, if their personalities reflect it, then sure, I would say I'm sitting in Betty's summer vacation house right now,
And then any exaggeration, anything better than real that's coming out of the scenery fits with that. So you're like, there was opposing forces going on with Betty's. It was dark comedy. The set was very comedic. I guess, fit a comedy in its high saturation of colors. But it's not a real space, you know. It's maybe there.
Yeah,
are,
I mean, do you find lawn furniture in your space? But remember how we came to that decision, which actually ended up, I think, really kind of working, is that, you know, yes, a couch should be there, but for practical application, right, we just didn't have it. But it then set up this whole other joke of when Mrs. Seismograph has way too much to drink and that thing moves, it rocks back and forth. So it then fed right into the comedy of it. Yeah, and so much fun to play on. That's the thing as an actor, like when you feel at home on the set and you feel like you own it, it really, I mean, so many words have been written towards the actors, you know, feeling at home and feeling comfortable in there, but it really is a thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That, you know, you can trust it,
sure.
that it's going to be there. And
a lot in what goes on with that too is, and especially in this show, is making pictures for the audience. And when you make those pictures, hopefully that work, looking at it from this side out, the actor will feel good, because they know that they're in that. When you open that door and there's someone, you know, here up left, there's someone down right, that picture that you make looks good from the audience, but it also feels good with the actor.
What is opening night like for you? Or have you solved problems, hopefully, by then? I mean, are you nervous?
No. Actually never really felt.
You probably don't get nervous though, do you?
The only time I get nervous is maybe the first time I show it to the director. Some of those initial ideas. And it's not nervous, it's just
like, uncertain. Anxious. Do I know? Right. Anxious. Yeah. Sure.
In the right direction. And
anxious. Yeah.
Better than. I'm notorious about not going to opening nights sometimes.
Oh yeah, and why is that?
I don't know. I just
is it like the guy that, you know, or the it's my child up there on stage and I don't want to, is it a little bit of that?
No, it's not.
No?
I just feel like
you've done your work?
Yeah, I feel like I need to disappear.
Oh, interesting.
I'm just like I'm gone. I'm out of here. I did it.
Wow. I'm on the stage in some way.
Yeah.
My work is on the stage.
And I do. I mean, I think I went to opening night for that show.
Yeah. I think I remember you being there. Yeah.
And I do go to opening nights. It's just sometimes.
I know. I hear you.
I'm just tired.
Yeah. Well.
And sometimes I seen the show so many times. There have been times opening nights that at the end of it, I thought, I just watched a completely different show than what I thought.
Really? Well,
I find something new in it, and it's like, and I'll just secretly say to myself, I should have done it.
Oh, well, now
sometimes it happens.
Does that have to do with how the actors are telling the story in the space you created?
Yeah, and the audience.
Oh,
I think being in an audience, you think about it differently.
Mm-hmm.
A little experience about being with other people, and you're sensing their energy, and you're picking up on things that, you know, you've seen the play so many times, you've read it so many times, you've been working on it for so long, and like, what are they laughing about? Or wow, I'd never got that line until I heard the audience's reaction towards it. So yeah, there only a few times in my career has it happened, but there have been some shows I thought, I don't know if that was right. It was right.
We felt that
fine, but I just saw it in a completely different
way. That's yeah, I could. Yeah, I mean, I know, you know, as a cast, we talked about this a lot because we just had absolutely no idea what was going to happen when Betty got mounted for many different reasons, because it was taking all kinds of risks and just pushing buttons in all different ways, shapes, and forms. So that was clearly a case of stepping out on the high dive and just, you know, do the trick and then see whether the pool of water is there or not, you know.
Yeah.
And it was different every night too. But I did feel consistently like the set was just always like that was one of the constants that was just really important to being able to play that show the same way and have a different response every night, having things constant.
Right, sure. Absolutely.
And so many tricks that worked.
Right.
You know, over the last, you know, since you've been teaching quite for so many different universities over the years, is there an aspect of what's changed in sort of scenic design, whether it be projections or media, or that you feel is been a good addition to the scenic design discussion?
Yeah, of course, technology and the way we visualize things now and the way that we create designs now, the technology is rapidly changing, obviously, the last 20 years. And so, well, I was trained everything by hand. Drafting, paint elevations, making model, everything you did with your hands. And 80%, no, 90% of my graduate education was drawing, drafting, doing things by hand. Of course, we're moving away from that, obviously. Well, we've moved away almost completely from that. And I've been like teaching as this has been evolving and trying to keep up with it myself. And I think the biggest challenge, not challenge, I think I'm doing a fairly good job at is teaching what's essential about design. And as the tools around us change, you still have that essential way of thinking about theater, storytelling, the design elements, the principles of design, composition. That's the essential thing. That's the through line over the last 20 years that I've been doing this. And then Vectorworks and AutoCAD and SketchUp and Photoshop and Procreate and all of the technical tools to do this are swirling around this thing that you're trying to keep essential, and you're trying to teach that one thing because it's going to continue to change. And I think it's good. I think it helps. It's unlocking and unleashing in students better ways to think about design if they have tools that can help them get there. So not being able to draw isn't a barrier to being a costume designer or a scene designer. Because I don't think, that's not essential. It's essential. It's essential for me, and that's another story. But it's if you can still understand your part in the storytelling process, that is most essential. Then all of these other tools that are wrapped around it, that's great. That's great. I think it's a good thing, and not being able to have a facility with some type of art instrument can keep you from creating and designing for the theater. So I kind of seen that as a way to keep thinking about design and keep moving forward with it. I did things by hand for so long, and I still do things by hand because that's how I think. For me, drawing is thinking. The process of drawing the lines and doing the perspective and shading the chiaroscuro, that for me, that's designing. So it's really hard to teach that as a design process these days. It's almost unnecessary in some ways, just because they're going to go right to Vectorworks and Photoshop, and that's the tools they're all being taught. And yeah, I still teach drawing. You
still have it.
Still do it by hand. I still think you should learn it by hand at least a semester, and then we can go and have fun with Photoshop, and everything.
But for the reason you pointed out, right? For you, it's a way of thinking through an idea or a concept, and in a way that, maybe reading a book that's bound as opposed to reading something on a computer, Kindle, reading a paper, who knows what it's firing up in the brain. Do you see a difference in sort of the students that are coming in? Have you over the years seen sort of differences in maybe the background or the skills? Are they different now? Are you getting more, computer savvy people?
Yeah. A lot of students are still open to doing it by hand and learning to draw and paint by hand. They're still very open to it. I think when you're young and you're thinking about designing in the theater, I think it does matter how you start off. I think I have seen students who have had, there's a program called SketchUp, and any scene designers out there, lighting designers know what this is. It's a very quick, easy to use, and efficient 3D modeling program. It used to be free. It was created by Google. And I do feel I can tell if a student has designed something with just the computer or if they started it by hand. There is a certain type of computer thinking I've seen throughout the years. There is a certain amount of problem solving, maybe letting the machine do a little problem solving for you, which is fine. It's what they're there for. And yes, I do see, I see that. Some of the software that is used is, students can't get their hands on. Some of it's just too expensive. Some of it's, it costs money to have a laptop and software. It's a lot cheaper to get a pencil and paper and explore your ideas that way. So I see all kinds, actually. I obviously there are more students coming in with playing around with SketchUp and doing things on the computer. I do think it changes the way they think about design a little bit.
I mean, when you're drawing initially for a design, does it take you to places in your mind that intersect with character and the use of the space? Which is not to say that couldn't happen when you're using a computer program, but I wonder if that act of drawing it out, ignites some kind of feeling that is dimensional in its, in the emotional color that it and the ideas that it might give you for further vetting out that idea.
Yes, drawing by hand slows my brain down. Mm-hmm. And, when you're playing around on the computer and you're playing with SketchUp or you're modeling in Vectorworks, you can go real fast and things happen fast. Like, oh, there's the archway that I wanted. Click, click, click. Now let's move on to the doors. Click, click, click. There's my door. I pull one off. I find one online, and you're drawing it by hand. You have to slow down a little bit. You have to draw that door, and then you think about the door, and you think about, well, that's a boring Home Depot looking door. Is that door right for this world? There's like a conversation I'm having with myself. I'm talking to myself as I'm doing it by hand. And then I can do the arc, and I say, and then I can erase it and make it a little more dramatic, or maybe now it's a Gothic arch. So for me, that's what I meant by drawing is designing. It doesn't immediately give me gratification and here's your design. You did it in 5 minutes. Look at it.
And it's very exact.
Morphs and changes, so.
Because I know that conversation, you can just see a little bit of them, but the doors, the purple one, the pink one, the green one, they were descending in their width. We talked about, you had talked about another way to add, and I think they're louvered, but one of them's not. I mean, they were different, each one of, and then you had, you designed them such that each one had some bad beach decoration, and it was a little bit like, The Price is Right, the three doors, but another way of getting, and just really making it fun for the actors. It's also another way for us to remember what we're going in and out of each time.
Yes.
the green door, the pink door.
And in a lot of ways, it's your typical farce set,
Yeah.
A lot of doors. So
Yeah, and slamming. That's always the, the challenge. Will it, you know, will it hold up? I wonder about when you're designing for a show, at what point or ever does video tend to come into it, or some kind of other design element that's not simply interior? Is that generally a director request, or it comes out early in the conversation?
Yeah, hopefully things like projections or specific sound. Is it live sound? Is it sound effects? Where are they coming from? Hopefully that stuff is as I know when I'm going into design, it's there. Some shows I've designed, and I thought someone's probably going to mention projections at this point.
Right. It's not something you're going to add in at the end because it's probably the main. Do you enjoy working with projections?
Yeah, I have a interesting relationship with them. I feel like, first of all, it's just hard for me to do that. I think if I've done many shows with projections, and it's like, is the set going to be a giant projection screen itself? Is there an element on the wall that we're projecting on? Is the projection screen apart from the world that we're in? And I'm also very ignorant about it. I know the basics of it and what you need to do with it. So I feel like I play well with projections. I feel like if it's going to be a part of what we're going to do and the director wants to do it, we've got good people doing it, I'm all for it. And it's the new design. It's the new, it's its own animal now, and it's gotten so far away from me in its technical aspects that it's pure aesthetics for me. It's like, how I don't want to hear any technical stuff because I don't understand it. But how is it going to move our story forward?
The story forward, yeah.
How is it going to be? How am I integrating that? Do you even need me? Is it? So it's an intriguing aspect. I've done it many times, and I hope to work with them again.
And in the program that you're teaching in the media and design program at Rowan, how has the last year of, I mean, that's a short period of time to integrate anything, but let me phrase it. Do you think that the last year of experimentation on Zoom and whatnot is going to feed its way into classes, to studies and teaching how to use this virtual platform, or I guess, how do you feel about that?
We used it very well last year. We had some great productions on Zoom. We actually did one dance piece where there were separate dancers that were filmed each evening, and then it was put together and edited, and then of course shown virtually. I don't know. I think every one of our faculty members had different opinions about all of this and how it could be integrated. As you might imagine, at first, everybody was like, this is terrible. We shouldn't do this. We shouldn't do anything on Zoom. And, it just became the reality that to keep us working and thinking and creating, we use this platform and we're going to do it. And it is what it is. And I don't know. I don't feel like our faculty, and I don't feel like, or even myself, I don't feel like we are going to be using Zoom in that way as of right now. I don't feel that way. I don't. We're looking ahead, and we're not looking towards doing much on this platform. I think there'll be space for it. I think there will be room set aside for those who want to explore it, faculty or students. I know teaching on it, I actually felt like I became pretty adept on how to use this. Of course, nothing beats, them in the classroom with me using the tools. But just how to use the technology and share the screen and set up my webcam and all of that. I started to get really good at it. And I, who knows, maybe at some point in the future, we'll be offering, if you could do that sort of thing, you could be offering it to students that are away or,
Yeah, well, and it's also to connect with students in other countries. Or I have a friend that teaches fashion illustration, and was teaching to students in China and in Japan and different time zones and whatnot. But the stories about trying to understand how to teach fashion illustration with a model, just sounded like, but in the end, like, wow, I did that. We did that. We made it happen.
Yeah. We did. I think they're still with us, hopefully, students. They're still ready to go. I think we held on to them, I hope, long enough. That
well, I think certain bonds were created and different, connections were made that were born out of the necessity of what had to happen, and they'll be studying it for a long time. Do you have a favorite author? So when a director calls you and says, Lane calls you and says, we're doing Shepherd, do you think, oh, this is, are there certain authors you live for?
Yeah, I love to do Shakespeare. I think I love to design Shakespeare. But I was very excited when Lane asked me about Shepherd, I have to admit.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten to design a Shepherd. And it was, I was pretty happy about that. And I really jumped straight into it. I really felt in some ways, I connected with those people and that lifestyle and that way of talking, not too foreign from, my realm. I don't have any really specific playwrights that I, particularly like or think I wish someone would do a Mamet or. I do love Pinter. Pinter's works. I
can see that being a fit for, not that you're a minimalist designer, but I could see that the extraordinary challenges in designing, say, Beckett or, Pinter.
Yeah.
Although not as.
But yeah, I'd love to do one day, a real big budget glass menagerie. That's always been.
Do you like the sort of real, like Tennessee Williams interior? It seemed to me like you would, like that would be right up your alley, doing a streetcar or doing a.
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess I would. That is one thing I would advertise. Someone asked me to do an epic Tennessee Williams.
Yeah. Well, the one I'm hoping with, what's that?
The space is just so poetic. The space is it's not real. Even though Tennessee Williams tells you it's not real, but as an audience member, you come in and you're looking at something you think is real, but it's pure physical poetry.
Well, I do hope that production of the two character play we can get up in the space. I know we had talked initially about, you're designing it in the Bethany Mission, which presents its own set of interesting and unique challenges and energies from the art that's there as well. And I guess designing something like that there versus a space like, a space at the Drake or at the Walnut, or a space that's four walls is what do you think about found spaces, just in terms of, as a designer, are those challenges that are ones that do you look forward to that?
Yeah. I think if it doesn't bug me, the thing that I think becomes an issue sometimes is I wonder why a specific play was chosen for this specific venue.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, doing it in a found space, you know, we can make theater anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And just, yeah, there's sometimes it's like, well, this play calls for something that you can't.
Like two character play. They're in a rundown roadhouse somewhere because they're on their 59th tour of the play that no one's showing up to.
Right.
You know, and so, yeah, I can see that if you walk into a pretty pristine setting.
Right.
And then you got to try to pull it back from there.
Right.
Yeah.
Or how the company wants to integrate. Sometimes you're in a space, it's like, well, this is the space we have, but let's not say we're in this space at all. Like we're going to put masking up and we're like, we want to hide the fact in the theater. Or do you integrate the space? So I think, you know, I just think all those choices that are made in relation to the space that, you know, someone's going to be in will help facilitate it, you know, make it work for everybody.
Have you interest in designing for opera? I mean, like continue, you know, as your design life goes on?
I've designed a lot of operas for universities. In fact, one of my first jobs out of grad school, I started designing for Temple Opera and did quite a number of shows with them. And then I met a director at Temple University who eventually went on to University of Memphis and then Lawrence University. And I've gone to both of those universities, kind of following him around, and have designed operas there also. And then, of course, the very first show I ever designed was an opera, small scale. But I love designing for opera. Just love it. For me, you're designing music in a lot of ways. So, yes, there's a story there. Yes, there's a setting that needs to be appropriate to the story that we're watching on stage. But you're designing music. You're really trying to, there's that other magical, hard to do, maybe never able to do realm of how do you make the design integrate with music? And it's a mystery. And I don't know if I've ever achieved it, but I like trying. And
so the task is a little bit, well, you're still integrating for the story and the story that the singers are telling, but is it, I guess, slightly different because their actions and the way that they move through that space is very different?
Sure. Music is the main force of the storytelling in opera for me. Like the music is another set of dialogue. It's another theme of the story. It's not just people singing a story. The music is part of the story. So, you know, I spend a lot of time listening to an opera before I design it, maybe not even really understanding the story yet or reading a synopsis and just listening to the music. Like, what's this music saying? What's it doing? And that's like, it's the hardest thing in the world. And I don't, and I really rely on, you know, opera directors are fascinating, and the way that they understand the music and the story is like, I don't know how they do it, but so I rely on, you know, them as like, am I even in the right direction? But I just like it because it's, you know, it really is, like I always say, my catchphrase, it's better than real. So, opera is that. Better than real.
Do you sketch when you listen to the opera?
Sometimes I just like, what am I thinking? I Google an image or, you know, or a little bit on the history of it, and like, oh, what, you know, the composer lived through this thing in their life. What was that? How does, like, what's this motif in the music? Like, what is that representing to the character that's singing that particular part? And so, yeah, I've sometimes I'll do a little sketching. Sometimes I kind of just want to listen to it.
Sounds a little bit like the process of how you got from your journey as a child to where you got to, is it's just a lot like designing your life. I mean, it's just, you sketched it out and it sort of went this way, and then which is a really fascinating way of pursuing it. Whether you knew you were doing that at the time or not, but it also sounds like you were following following your instincts and not stepping too far ahead of the next act.
I never thought of it that way. It's true. I just kind of just sketched my life as it went along.
Yeah, I was
that way, and then it went that way.
Yeah, I think that's so great. I forget what I was reading the other day. It was something where they talked to people. If your 40-year-old self could talk back to your 40-year-old self could talk back to your 20-year-old self, what advice would you give it? And they talked to entrepreneurs and, people running companies of all different sizes, shapes, and forms. And one of the big themes that came out was to not plan so much, or to be willing to take that plan and be flexible. Mm-hmm. If the river goes a different direction, and to not be afraid of that, to think that the plan isn't going to necessarily deliver you to the destination that you're hoping. And it was kind of a theme that kept coming up from so many people along the way. So
yeah, that's true. I think that's what I did. I think I just kept it flexible. Like, yeah, things can change. Things can morph into other things. Just let it happen,
and allow because they were, speaking a lot about just like letting the space for the creativity to kind of perhaps the better solution to the situation to bubble up. And sometimes when you're just single-handedly on that road and to wherever you think you're going, you're not, Well, Dirk, it's been just really my pleasure to talk to you and to catch up with you, hear about your work, and I hope that I hope there's plans for Lane's, and I keep saying Lane Savadov of EgoPo Classic Theatre. I hope that your production is because where were you in the process when the pandemic happened?
Oh, the set was built and loaded in.
And you had some run, right? You were close.
Yes, we had a designer run. There was still a ways to go, but the set had been loaded in. There was still painting and set dressing to take place. And
this is Shepard's
Curse of the
Starving Class.
And then it shut down. Everything shut down, literally a couple days, and we knew it. So the designer run was kind of a in a way a farewell, but also we did.
You probably thought you were coming back pretty quickly, right?
And hopefully we're going to come back with it. Yes,
I hope so.
Me too.
Yeah, that must have been a hard night, and particularly since we had no idea of knowing what we know now. So, thinking that maybe it was just a short hiatus. And well, I hope that's the case. I certainly want to see your work. And I hope that as theatrical goalposts keep changing on us, that Tennessee Williams, the two-character play, can happen at a time when you're available and we're available and the space exists and we can make it happen.
I'm ready.
Yeah, me too. John Zach and I keep talking about it. We're like, it keeps moving a little bit further out, but the time will present itself and we'll make it happen. And until then, I look forward to seeing your work. Best of luck with studies and activity over at Rowan and all the freelance projects that you're working on. And thanks for all that you're doing for Philadelphia Theater.
Thank you.
Yeah. Take care.
All right. Thanks.
And thanks to everybody for being with us. So nice of you to join us back here at the table after our hiatus. We will be back next week, and I'm going to tell you who's going to be on. It's Lisa Grunberger. She's an author. She's a Pushcart nominee, and she is a Temple University professor. Her work has appeared in a variety of publications, including the New York Times. She has a play about motherhood, infertility, assisted reproductive technologies called Almost Pregnant, and it is currently under artistic development at Squeaky Bicycle Theater Company in New York City, and is published by Smith Scripps. She teaches narrative medicine and yoga and writing at the Lewis Katz School of Medicine. And when she's not being a mom, a professor, and a poet, she teaches yoga and writing workshops at the Healing Arts Center in Philadelphia. She's currently working on her memoir entitled Spit, a Jewish adopted woman's reckoning with her refugee origins. So I hope that you'll join us when Dr. Lisa Grunberger joins us on next week's show. Wishing you all a very, very happy and relaxing week ahead, and we hope to see you at the table next Saturday, August the 7th, with Dr. Lisa Grunberger. Have a great week ahead.